In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the Graph and Paintbrush programs to create a graph for a grade 9 math course where we are working mostly in quadrant 1 with real-life applications. So I'm going to use an example where we're comparing a person's earnings to their hours worked. You can see I'm in my standard 10 by 10 grid. I'm going to go to axes. And I want to go from 0 hours up to 50. I'm going to change my tick unit to 10 and my grid unit to 2. So along the x-axis, each tick will be worth 2 hours, but I'm only going to show numbers on every 10 hours. In the y-axis, I'm going to allow for earnings from 0 to $1,000. My tick unit will be 100 and my grid unit will be 20. Now watch what happens when I click OK. Here's my grid. You can see I took all that time to set up the numbers, but I can't see them. So here's the problem. If I go to the axes, starting on the x-axis with a 0 doesn't leave enough room for the labels along the y-axis. And on the y-axis, having a starting point of 0 doesn't leave enough room for the labels along the x-axis. So to adjust that, I look at what I put for the tick unit and I go to the left that amount. So instead of starting at 0, I'm going to start at -10. And on the y-axis, instead of starting at 0, my tick unit was 100, so I'm going to start at -100. I'm also at this point going to click off the x and y-axis labels because I'm going to add my own labels on afterward. So while I'm here, I'd also like to add a title onto my graph, and I can do that in settings. I'm just going to go to title and type earnings versus hours. And there we go. So now I'm going to go to edit and I'm going to copy that image and I'm going to go to Paintbrush, which everyone has on their computer. Now before I go and paste that in, I would like to go to view and zoom out because my graph is going to be fairly big. I want to make sure I have room to see everything. So now I'm going to go back to home and paste. There's my graph and I'm going to pick it up and just slide it into the middle. So now I'd like to add some axis labels. So I'm going to choose the text tool and I'm going to create a text box away from my graph so I can play with it. Now I've already got it set up. I like Times New Roman 18 font because that will be pretty close to the font I've got in the title, and I like to bold my labels, but that's just me. So my x-axis label is going to be hours worked. And I'm going to create another text box with my y-axis label earnings in dollars. Okay, so now I want to go back to the home button and select my y-axis label, and I'm going to choose rotate left 90 degrees, and then I just pick it up and slide it over onto the y-axis. Then I'm going to select my x-axis label and slide it onto the x-axis. And while I have my select tool, I may as well select my grid and pop it into a Word document. And I like to kind of trim it a little bit, get rid of some of the extra squares that maybe I don't need over here. So then I'm going to copy. I'm going to open my Word document and paste, and there it is. And from there I can adjust the size however I need it. And that's how I make a grid for my grade 9 course.